The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Peter Boyle. This is the Peter Boyle Show on Talk Radio 630 KHAL.
It is. We are, and good morning, everyone. 2 minutes after the hour, 7:02. And I never thought this would happen, but it is. It's Monday morning, August the 1st, 2011, first morning of August, 97 the high today, 87 on Tuesday. And I say this, please say welcome home and welcome in the studio. What an amazing time he has had. Lieutenant Colonel Terry Lakin is with us, and good morning, sir. Thanks for coming on the show. You look great, man.
Well, good morning, Peter. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. She came in and did a little short video and a couple of snapshots. You can go to the website, KHOW.com. We look like a couple old guys on vacation together. We both got on shorts and shirts and stuff. We look like a couple old guys going on a cruise. And this is Marco Cavallino, who has been a really important part of this show as well, the Terry Lakin Action Fund. Hey, Marco, good morning.
Good morning, Peter. Thanks for having Terry on today.
The man's in the studio. Marco, where are we speaking to you from?
I'm in Maryland, but I'd probably rather be there.
Yeah, it's pretty hot back there, too, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's hot here. It's hot here as well. I guess we begin at the beginning. We're sitting here talking. Colonel, you went to, where did you go to medical school?
In Kansas City.
Okay. And where'd you go to undergrad?
Colorado College at Colorado Springs.
Yeah, you and Craig Silverman. He's a CC guy. And then when did you join the military?
Right when I got accepted to medical school, I learned about the military scholarships and immediately applied for those, and had offers from different services, but I chose the Army because I learned that they were the best training and wasn't the best duty stations, but certainly best possibilities for medical training.
So when were you commissioned?
1989 when I started medical school, and then after we graduate from medical school, we get recommissioned as a captain at that time, and then I came here to Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center for my internship, and
then from there,
I got an operational tour as a flight surgeon down in Honduras for a year.
Okay,
and had a wonderful operational tour as a flight surgeon, and then went off to Germany, and within 3 or 4 months of my duty station in Germany, we were rolling into Bosnia. I was taking care of the Apache Battalion for Aviation Brigade, and
so you went to Bosnia next.
Did Bosnia for a year, and then from there got accepted for family practice residency down at Womack Army Medical Center at Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
And from there?
From there, it was out to Hawaii, and I was in charge of a urgent care or acute care clinic for several years, and then became chief of family practice at the clinic out at Schofield Barracks.
Okay.
And then that was when Afghanistan was on their 5th iteration, and I went out to Afghanistan for a year with the division from Schofield Barracks.
So what was your job in Afghanistan?
I was a 3/4 cav squadron flight surgeon, and there was 2 of us and a PA, and we took care of the 3/4 cavalry.
You went out in the field with these guys?
Oh, yeah, it was a great unit. We were we're the eyes and ears of the division.
Sure.
We were out, had the Kiowa Warrior helicopters overhead all the time, and we're out with the scouts that seek out targets and hand those off to the division. But we patrolled Kandahar Province for a while, and then we rolled out to Herat and quelled the little rebellion out there.
I remember that.
I was on leave at the time, but when I came back to the unit,
we
were out at Shindan Airfield, which is right along the Iranian border, and spent 6 months out there about.
And then after that?
After that, I got accepted for occupational medicine residency at Bethesda, and received my master's in public health and also my occupational medicine residency training. And then a few years at kind of the Army's think tank, Center for Health Promotion and Preventive Medicine, for a couple of years. And then I worked at the Pentagon. It was my last real duty station for, pushing a year. I was the chief of primary care at the Pentagon Clinic.
Pretty remarkable career, Marco.
I agree. It's been extraordinary getting to know Terry over the last 20 months. When I got a call from a friend who said, I have an attorney who needs help with a project. And little did I know, Peter, we'd be 18 months down the line with Terry where he is and in a position to do the things that he's doing. It's been an extraordinary adventure.
There came a moment when you were scheduled to go again, correct?
Yes, I was notified that I was on the short list. Probably 5 docs that were being looked at to go over with the next division or the next rotation.
And you decided no.
Well, yeah. Eventually, it was kind of a long process. I was at one duty station up at Aberdeen Proving Ground, kind of a desk job, and the elections we went through the primary process, and I, learned about these questions, and I thought they were valid questions that needed to be answered. So I tried to seek out answers at that duty station using military channels, and then when I transferred to the Pentagon, I immediately tried to seek out answers using what I gathered was the proper military channels for asking this question, and it led up to that decision to not go.
I knew that, of course, I knew last week that Colonel Lakin was going to be here, so I went back and pulled out some of the old notes and did some revisions to my notes. And the mainstream press, notably columnists in this city, talk show hosts in this city, national people, would have you believe that birther, or the term birther, is a bunch of crazy tinfoil hat wearers, that there's no basis to demand proof of who or what Barack Obama really is. But the birthers actually number in millions, and the basis for their demands are set in stone by the people who ratified the Constitution. So I made a list, and Marco, I don't know if you want to go along with this and anything you want to add to it.
Sure.
But the original vault copy birth certificate still has never dropped. We have a PDF that
is correct.
That people have taken apart as layered. I don't want Colonel Lakin to be part of this part of the conversation, although he can certainly jump in. But I made a list, and you were how many weeks were you from being released when the president called that press conference and all of a sudden shows this PDF file?
I had about 2 weeks left, and my 6-month sentence, it was reduced to a 5-month sentence with good time.
Marco, does that ever enter your mind?
It does, and I was personally offended by the entire press conference, and of course, people came running all over the prison to Terry and said, come here, you got to see this, I think on the one news channel they could see. And frankly, you're right. I mean, and the press has let him go on this for months. Mm-hmm. They kept saying, this is all we have, and then lo and behold, kind of like a dog just dragged it out from under the bed. Oh, look at this.
And look what we found.
Right, and still, nothing that every other U.S. In fact, actually, as Dean Haskins has pointed out on the Birther Summit site, every person in the world in any orderly society has a birth certificate from his or her country. Mm-hmm. And yet our president doesn't seem to have a physical birth certificate or is unwilling to provide it. It's just so dirt simple. That's what's so maddening. But yes, Terry was annoyed by this. I was annoyed by this. Millions were annoyed by this.
Well, the lawyers' fees have exceeded $2 million for a piece of paper that's worth $15.
Seems like a bad deal to me, don't you think?
Well, so here's my list. The marriage license for the parents, of course, weren't married. The divorce records, which you can get them, but there's pages missing. Remember, Barack's mom filed, and his father never responded. Why respond if you were never married? Saturo Dunham marriage license. This is Barack's Muslim stepdad. Never released. Saturo adoption records. Never released. Yet we do have records showing Lolo, Barack's stepdad, enrolling him as an Indonesian citizen and a Muslim by faith. In Indonesia, Barack attended St. Francis of Assisi School and another school as well. The application was released. There's the Neolani kindergarten records. Panahu school apps, they're missing. Panahu school records are repressed. The so-called Return to Hawaii Neolani third grade records, Return to Hawaii, never released. Saturo Dunham divorce. When released, pages are missing from that. Obama's SSN, which is a big one, Connecticut. First digits are 042, assigned to Connecticut sometime between 76 and 77. At the time, the POTUS would have been 16, 17 years of age, selling ice cream to Baskin-Robbins in Hawaii. Tell me how he got the 042. His SSN, his SSR, Selective Service Registration, appears to be doctored, according to people, created only after he began a political life, not when he was 18. He didn't think he had to register because either Kenyan or Indonesian or the dual citizenship. Occidental college records are suppressed, not released. Financial aid records at Occidental suppressed, not released. Passport information not released. Records scrubbed clean by his terrorism and intelligence advisor. Columbia University records are suppressed. Columbia University thesis, we do know the title, it's Soviet nuclear disarmament, suppressed. Harvard University records, not released. Harvard Law Review articles, there are none. Illinois bar records, not released. Baptism certificates, medical records. Add those to the rest of those lists of different things. Anything I missed on that, buddy?
I think you got it all. In fact, I just sent this over to Greg. This little site, brainreboot.com, did some cartoons of this very effect and put, there's one called Contrast and Eligibility that has a list of everything Terry had to do to get a medical license. Peter, it dwarfs the list you just read. And then there's another cartoon where basically it checks off one thing and then all these other things. You're right. This is just absurd. And frankly, all of us are wondering why no one's taking the task on it.
Well, I don't know.
Don't know.
But as long as the so-called mainstream media leaves this alone, what happened to Colonel Lakin, and the part of it that really troubles me, and I'll ask Colonel Lakin this as well, when you were incarcerated and found out that the president had dropped this PDF, how did you feel?
I think there was a kind of a feeling of relief that maybe this is, finally it. And, I don't hold any animosity or grudges or anything. I just thought that this is a thing that needed to be answered. But, I would hope that people would look at it and make sure that it's a real deal.
Marco, how did you feel?
Well, same thing. But frankly, having an opportunity to speak with folks like you and Corsi and many other people we have on Terry's behalf, I was skeptical from the get-go. And then once, immediately, within seconds, when you realize all it was digital, even more skeptical. And then when I spoke with Joseph Farrar, we kind of laughed about this. I said it was the Sesame Street effect. And he said, what do you mean? I said, one of these things is not like the other. We've all seen dozens of birth certificates in Hawaii, and this one doesn't look like any of them. So, how stupid can we be, I don't know. It's amazing to me.
But we watch it.
We do, and it's important that we do. And as you said earlier on, this is not a bunch of tinfoil hats and underwear.
No.
This are a group of the people that are coming alongside Dean Haskins and the Birther Summit. If you look at the members that are joining the summit, this is an extraordinarily highly educated group of well-studied people, PhDs, doctorates, commentators, folks like yourself who have just doggedly and diligently do it. And really, in the end, Peter, I think it's going to take 10,000 points. It's unfortunately not going to happen from where it should.
And put everybody on hold. We need to pause. It's 15 after the hour. Colonel Lakin's here. We'll talk about his incarceration and his trial.
I know that there's going to be a segment of people for which, no matter what we put out, this issue will not be put to rest.
Better believe it. 22 after the hour 7, the voice of the president, the day that he showed the PDF. 630 KHOW, Monday morning, first morning of August, 97 the high. It's a real pleasure and honor. Lieutenant Colonel Terry Lakin's in studio, and on the line with us is Marco Covellino. I was talking to the colonel about going to penitentiary off air, what it was like. And first of all, your court-martial lasted a cup of coffee. I think it was 2 days, wasn't it?
Yeah, just short of 2 days. It was, my fate was sealed after the investigative process was over several months ago, or several months prior to the trial. The Article 32 hearing, which is kind of like a
grand jury,
investigative grand jury, they disallowed any kind of depositions or subpoenas that would have helped me at all. So,
and you know damn well that they weren't going to let that happen. They were not going to look for evidence of the president's illegality. within the JCS, and it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, I had hoped that I knew it was a very small chance, but
I'm with you.
That was my only hope.
So from the moment, and I asked him if you got, and I didn't realize officers don't get dishonorable discharges. What did you get?
Officers get dismissals.
And that's a dishonorable discharge.
The equivalent of that for enlisted.
From the second they found you guilty, what happened then?
Well, we take a short recess, and then we start the sentencing phase, which is, kind of have other people talk in your behalf, and the prosecutors are able to kind of cross-examine them, and it's all just kind of trying to put on a defense of you're still a good soldier and still able to do something, and hopefully that will mitigate your sentence. And so it's a separate process. You get convicted, and then you have another little kind of short trial or something for the sentencing.
How long? Well, what happened when they? By the way, how much time were you given? Because I know you got some good time off. But how much time were you given?
I was sentenced to 6 months, and forfeiture of all pay and benefits, and dismissal. Okay. And the 6 months was able to turn into about 5 months with 5 days off per month for good conduct, and as long as I didn't get in trouble in prison. And then I earned 1 day a month for my work program that I was on.
So from Washington, you were at Fort Meade. Was that where the date? Where were you court-martialed?
Fort Meade.
I thought so. Yes. What was the trip? What happened immediately after?
After my sentencing, I was given 20 minutes with my family to say goodbye. And
how many children do you have?
I have 3 children.
Your wife was just here. She went to Starbucks. I should say that. She's a beautiful woman. So you had 3 kids. You had 20 minutes.
20 minutes to say goodbye to my parents and my brothers who were there. And
we know your brother. We've spoken with your brother. Did they take away your uniform?
Yeah, I put on the combat uniform, combat dress, and had my escort there who tore my rank off, and then
tore it off.
Yeah, it was Velcro.
Yeah, just zip. You're out.
Yes, okay. You won't be needing this.
Okay.
And shackled at the ankles with the chain. And
what about all your decorations, the bin there buttons? What do they do? Take them as well?
Yeah, they aren't on the battle dress.
Okay, uniform. but you were in Class A's as you stood court, right?
Yes.
So
they have you take your dress uniform with you to prison in case you get court-martialed again.
I see. It just makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, but shackled and handcuffed and marched off to a van and taken to a holding cell over at Walter Reed Army Medical Center.
But you knew people there too. That had to be just.
It was guarded by
guys you knew,
guys that are in my company. And
how'd they treat you?
Well, just kind of silence, and there was the people in the administrative office that knew me. I think were very, very hurt, and I could see some tears as they walk away or something. And it's a horrible process for anybody to go through, even for people to watch it. But I was for the most part treated well and respectfully. But the cell that I had at Walter Reed was not made to have somebody in there for very long, and I started complaining the next day about how wet it was, how cold it was. There was a vent, snowing in the wintertime, and I told them I wasn't going to spend another night or two in there with no heat, and then things seemed to happen not immediately, and late the next day I was on a flight out to Kansas City. And
what kind of an airplane did they take you on?
It was a commercial flight. I was
okay. You're one of those guys chained up in the airplane.
I was marched through Reagan International Airport in shackles, and going through the TSA searches with shackles on, and then shackled in the plane in the back seat. So
how many guys took you to Leavenworth?
There was 2 sergeants and then a full bird colonel.
Did he talk to you at all?
No, not much at all.
So they land in what, Kansas City or Topeka or where?
Yeah, we landed in Kansas City near midnight, and then it's about a 30-minute drive to Leavenworth, and got in processed 1 o'clock in the morning, and taken off to what they call the reception center. It's essentially a maximum security area, and that was where I spent my holidays up until about New Year's. So I think I was in that reception area for 15 or 16 days, and had 22 hours locked in the cell and maybe 2 hours to get out and take a shower and play cards with some of the guys that were coming in too.
And then is there general population in Leavenworth?
That's when they,
Okay.
People were on, we had to have some in-processing classes and learn how the system works and get all the paperwork done, and then they get you into the general population, and that's the larger holding cells of, there's 5 big cell blocks that could hold up to 80 inmates, but they're generally about 40 or 50 in 2 cell blocks.
Do you have a cellmate?
I did have a cellmate. Ended up being a wonderful guy, wonderful friend, wonderful Christian.
What was he? Can you say what he was there for? Or would you rather not? Okay.
Probably not.
Okay, all right.
I learned that there was a lot of good soldiers in there that shouldn't have been there, and
I think that's true a lot of places.
And questionable charges, and I read lots of record of trials of fellow inmates that they'd bring these record of trials to me, and I'd read them.
You said that you became. You're telling me off air, Marco. Have you ever heard these stories before?
Yeah, just a few times.
Okay,
but they're very, very interesting.
Yeah,
and
who he becomes inside a prison.
Absolutely.
Let me do this. I'm close to the break. I don't want to continue. We'll pick it up on the other side. Marco, can you stay with us?
Absolutely.
All right, hang on a second. In studios, Lieutenant Colonel Terry Lakin talking about his. Now he's in Leavenworth, and we're talking about it. But again, this president has been running from his entire past, all of his political life. And his handlers, minions in the press have been running interference every step of the way. We do Trafficking Back on 630 KHOW. It's 7:35, 25 minutes before the hour. If you're just joining us, this will be podcasted, and I think people should pick up on and tell folks about it. It's Monday morning, the 1st of August, KHOW Radio. 97 the high today, says KHOW Weather Center, 87 Tuesday, 86 on Wednesday. In studio, of course, no introduction needed, Lieutenant Colonel Terry Lakin. And on the line with us is a guy who has been a stalwart through all of this. He's in Maryland, Marco Cavallino. And you can go to KHOW.com. There's pictures of myself and Colonel Lakin and a video that the Sheik shot, and it's all up at KHOW.com. We're talking, one of the things that you told me off air is, I asked you about your medical license, and you said, and I don't want to put words in my mouth, but Colorado's been very good to you.
Oh, yes. As soon as I got out, I forwarded all the information about my conviction to the states that I had medical license in, and Colorado was wonderful. They got back right away and said that they understand this is a military charge. It had nothing to do with my medical judgment or ability, and got back to me and said, your license is good here in Colorado.
And you're thinking perhaps you may come home?
I am.
Got to be wonderful. We'd start driving to Fort Collins. Take the Sheik. here's an experiment for you on the other side of the wall. We're talking about Leavenworth and your arrival. And they have you in a holding.
It is. It's
getting adjusted.
Yeah, a small maximum security type setting, and you do some in-processing there, and certainly they make sure you got the prison uniforms and just the amount of clothes, and then your cell is inspected every day or every hour. Anytime you leave it, the guard will go in there and lock the door and search it for a while and shake it down.
That's a military prison, people. That's not civilian guards. They're military, correct?
Right, and they are. The facility I was in was a pretty new facility. It just opened 3 months prior to my arrival there, but so it was brand new, state of the art. Had cameras all over the place, and kind of microphones in the walls and everything. So
you said they really listen.
Yeah, even the guards just feel uncomfortable and like they're being watched all the time, too. So it's the facility also was just housed inmates that had 5-year sentence or less, and then the detention barracks is the one that holds the Leavenworth 10 and people that have been sentenced
for the audience who doesn't know the Leavenworth 10. Explain who they are.
Well, an assortment of military officers or military that have been, incarcerated or convicted of sometimes rules of engagement or other related activities.
Guys in combat that they claim now,
right, may have treated prisoners
badly or
terrorists badly and got convicted and
would have never happened in the Second World War. Never happened. but now they're called the Leavenworth 10. I've read extensively about them.
Yeah.
And they're sitting there. Some of them are doing life, aren't they?
Some are.
Yeah, I've read that. What was a day like for you? And what time,
Well, wake up early in the morning. I think usual wake-up call was at 5, and we had to be, dressed and ready to go to breakfast at 5:15.
Mm-hmm.
And after you get back done with breakfast, you get ready for your work call 5 days a week.
What was your job?
I initially started out working in the library, and finally
They wouldn't let you couldn't be a doctor.
No, they would not allow that.
Okay.
I did ask, and I also immediately tried to see if I could teach and help them out with their education program, and that worked out later on. It took several months to get that rolling, but I worked in the library for a month, and then the chaplain decided to get me on his work detail. There was 4 or 5 of us that worked for the chaplain's detail, and there was a religious media center that had books and library and DVDs, and then we'd take care of the chapel and clean that.
What time's lights out?
10 o'clock.
Okay.
And throughout the day, you come back and get ready for lunch. Go to lunch, you have 15 minutes to eat, and then you're out the door again.
Eat up and get out.
And then, then recreation call in the evenings was either, indoor gym or outdoor gym, or the library. And weekends, my work detail on the chaplain, we did work Saturday and Sundays, but we had Mondays and Tuesdays off.
Did your family come to see you?
Yes, they did.
I know your brher went. I know that.
Yeah, he came out several times. Wife and kids came down during Christmas break from school, or right at the New Year, and it was a touchy time whether I was going to be in the general population, and my wife and kids could visit.
Really? They didn't want you to be general population, or
they couldn't visit me while I was in the reception area, in the maximum security. So I think the system actually did try and move things along and get me into general population along with the others. So we didn't have to spend New Year's there.
Did the other prisoners know who you were or why you were there?
Just a few in the beginning, a few of the guards in the beginning, but after several months, they all knew.
Well, how were you? Did things change when they found out you're a physician and why you're doing that time?
A little bit. They're just you're under camera all the time, and even guards would maybe come up and while we're out playing cards or something, sometimes they'd ask me about an ankle injury or something like that. And
were you? I mean, you told me some stuff off air. I don't know if you can even say on air. It's probably not, but
I've been a doctor for a long time.
My adult life. Yeah,
and it's just hard to get that out. But sometimes I could recognize something, or other inmates would tell me about their treatment or care, and you have to say, like, well, go back and ask them about this, because I think you may have something different, or there may be a little better treatment. And there are other syndromes and things that I recognize just visually, and it breaks your heart if they're not getting treatment for it. So I did try and reach out to somebody one time and ask them if they knew about a syndrome that
you got in trouble for.
They might have, and I don't know how they found out, but the highest enlisted guard found out and called me out and said, don't ever do that again. And
wow. Even though the person you were trying to help is actually not incarcerated, right?
Right. Yeah. And I did it, as confidentially as I could, and as it wasn't behind doors. It was please read this note and see if you know about this, and they did, and they were getting some treatment, but then they had more questions for me, and that, I don't know if that was seen on tape or microphone, but a few days later I was threatened with going back into max security.
Wow. What? 7:43. Marco, anything you want to add here before I pause again? I got a ton of questions, but anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, Peter, it was interesting. At Terry's release, I went to Kansas, and he and Greg and I met Terry. And walking into the room gives you some feel for what it's like. And he was in a very new facility. It was very nice, but still, to have him come out in this mismatched, kind of ugly prison garb with his number on the side, and and the restrictions. He didn't mention this to you, but one of the reasons the family didn't want to go back and visit him is they're not allowed to touch him at all, and it was extremely difficult for the children. And all we could do was just greet him briefly and then sit across the table. It was an extraordinary thing to see him in prison, and yet, as you've continued to ask him, he had a huge impact on the prison. Peter, I think that's an amazing story in itself.
We'll talk about that on the other side. You hang on, please, if you would. Colonel Lakin's in studio. It's 7:48, 12 minutes before the hour, 630 KHOW Radio, Monday morning, August the 1st. All of this will be podcast, and again, if you go to the website, KHOW.com, there's a picture of myself and the Colonel and a little video that the Sheik shot, and it's all there on the line with us, and he's remarkable as well. He has stood with Terry Lakin, Marco Cavallino, pardon me. He's in Maryland. I'm Peter Boyles. In the studio, of course, Lieutenant Colonel Terry Lakin. Marco, we were talking a lot off air about the experiences of Colonel Lakin inside the penitentiary, and I was talking to him, and he has a pretty general idea what he's going to obviously be a physician again, or is it never quit being a physician, but he's going to do, he said, thinks about some prison outreach programs as well. You were telling me this, and I do believe this as well. Who's in prisons today? It's just unjust. Yeah, Marco, but you want to add something. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was just very interesting to me. As a civilian, certainly I've seen shows about prisons on television and so forth, and yet what became clear to me from Terry's experience is that the prisoners in the military prisons are just really nobody knows. And these are men and women whom the United States has invested many, many millions of dollars into. They're not the average population. And yes, there are some who have done crimes that correspond to civilian crimes like rape and murder and so forth. But there are many, many others who I believe Terry's been telling you about who really were either mischarged or their charges were perhaps overly aggressive, and a lot of these folks just want to do something. These are very talented men and women, and Terry and I discovered that even very fine organizations like Prison Fellowship do not have direct ministries into the federal penitentiary system. And so Terry and I and others have explored that a little bit as perhaps a future endeavor, is to get back into the prisons and be able to help these folks with a faith-focused project. It's fascinating to me listening to him talk about some of the experiences. And he, unlike the criticisms that were leveled against him on some of the blogs, he did not think everybody was innocent. He actually took time to read the record of trial. And Peter, I have his sitting right here in my office. It's about a foot tall. It was just 2 days of trial, really, and it is thousands and thousands of pages. And Terry sat down and read those for many prisoners. So he wasn't just talking; he was acting.
He was telling me, if you would, sir. We're going to mic him up, Sheik. I'm sorry. Greg, got to throw his mic on him. Go ahead.
Well, yes, several other inmates came to me and told me about their charges and that they didn't believe that they were guilty about it. And they actually presented their record of trials to me. And I went through several of them, and sometimes you go through and you just look at the evidence, or you look at the people testifying against them, and the charges, and you just shake your head and you say, you really got convicted for this, or you're doing this amount of time for this small of a crime, and it just breaks your heart. And I think there was 5 guys at least that I would say wouldn't have been convicted in a civilian trial. I would hope not. But the military does brag about their high conviction rate, and I'm not sure they should be bragging about that.
Did you ever meet any of the Leavenworth 10? Was there any crossover?
I did not, no.
Okay. That's still brutal.
I only know about a few of them, but the stories that I've read on those is, we got to do something to help them and not forget about them.
No, I really agree about that. So where were you when you found out that the president had shown his birth certificate? You were a couple of weeks from getting out?
I was 2 weeks from getting out. I was getting ready to go to the outdoor recreation time. I think I had my running shoes and my little the AM radio, and one of the other inmates was screaming at me to come over and watch TV, and there was the press conference going. I think it was probably a tape delay. It had been in the morning when we were at work, and so I saw that tape delay, and then he walked off and didn't take any questions or anything.
No, he never took any questions. No, he said, "What did you make of that morning, Marco?"
Well, hard to say. let's go on for a second. Go back. I'm sorry. What specific morning, Peter?
The morning when the president drops the PDF and says, "Here's my birth certificate." End of story. The MSM, the mainstream media, like a trout leaping for a fly.
We talked about that earlier. Really, to me, it was just kind of astounding. I was doing something with my wife on some other project, and all of a sudden my phone just started dinging, and text messages and emails, and I ran into what's going on. Like, what is this? But like I said earlier, you thought for a second, wow, maybe he's going to fall down weeping and admit this, and we can deal with it as a country like we should do. But instead, for some unbelievable reason, not only did he not present a piece of paper that every person in any organized country has, it was even a bad forgery. It didn't, and as we now discovered, it didn't take much for people to decipher it. I was just offended by his entire attitude about it. And also, there's simply zero acknowledgement of Terry's case and the many other people who have, put forth extraordinary effort. It was just treated very blithely and casually, and I thought inappropriately.
The story, to me, it was always, Trump was starting to get a lot of drum beats. Corsi's book was on the edge. There were, I think, 12 states that had either pondered legislation to say, okay, you got to show your certifications to run for president, your so-called certifies. The mainstream press was unable at that point even to ignore it. And then out of the clear blue, when he lets this man go to prison, and he spends millions of dollars to block anyone from seeing this stuff, sending out even agents of the Justice Department into courtrooms in San Diego, letting this fine man go, then suddenly produces this for excess of $2 million for a piece of paper that's worth $15.
And not only that, but not even really a piece of paper. And this
that's right, a PDF. That's right.
Peter, one of the things that just galls me is when I read articles all the time that says, in spite of overwhelming evidence to the contrary, and our response from the trust, and same with Corsi and many others, has been, what evidence? All we have are two badly formed digital documents. End of evidence. That is it. Now, you tell me, if you took me to court and you asked me to produce a whole bunch of legal documents and so forth, and I brought in two digital scans, what do you think your attorney would do?
Throw it out. Here's my guide. I'm going to read you something, and then we had a fellow come up here and the first morning and sit us down in our studio. We made a video of it, and he took that file, and interesting enough, the attorney for Coe Perkins is the law firm, flew under the cover, no one knew she was going. She picks up this PDF, flies back. Why wasn't it released in Hawaii? Why wasn't any of those things? Flies back in this unannounced press conference. And this guy that worked with us, he said, hey, guys, Jeff, the birth certificate computer guy here, man, what a great, great show. I'm sitting here streaming it in silence, shaking my head. His story, meaning Terry's, is amazing, shocking, and a stark reminder of what deep trouble we're all in. Thanks for the interview. The show, as always, passed my heartfelt best to the Colonel. It is true. What was accepted and so accepted so quickly. So here's a lousy question. Was it worth it?
Yeah, I'm at peace with it. I think I took steps early on that led me down a path, and I had to take the best choice that I could make. After I had tried to use the military process, talk to my chain of command, even going up to Congress members and congressional staffers and asking them the question, the answers that I received didn't give me a lot of confidence that I was going to remain in the service. And I did have a remaining medical contract with the Army, so there was no way I could just walk away. They would have laughed at me, and I was left with a hard choice. I'm at peace with it. I thought that I could make it financially or medically wise as long as I didn't get sentenced for longer than 4 years. Then I would be too much out of medicine, and it'd be a hard struggle back. But
what was it like the day you got out?
Just to look at things in the distance that
Yeah.
Instead of a concrete wall that's 40 feet away, and have the choice of ordering food or calling my wife and kids, and actually seeing them on Skype video was wonderful.
I've talked to people that say they don't know how to act when they get out.
It's still
Yeah.
I can still go to the bathroom faucet, and I used to have a push button that went off, water turned off in 10 minutes or 10 seconds, and now it doesn't. I have to turn it off myself.
Hey, Marco, thank you for the hour, brother, man, and I know we'll meet someday too, man. Thanks.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for your ongoing support of Terry's case. So,
my honor.
And thank you,
Colonel,
and
God bless you.
All your listeners. Several of them wrote me wonderful letters and postcards, and I thank them.
Thank you, sir. We'll talk real soon. Coming back in Open Lines on a Monday. Everyone, that was Colonel Terry Lakin. You stay here. We'll take your calls next.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.